Hi everyone, welcome back. Docker is one of the most important tools in modern DevOps, cloud computing, microservices, and CI/CD pipelines. In interviews, companies expect candidates to understand how Docker works internally, how images and containers are managed, and how Docker fits into deployment pipelines. In this video, we will discuss top Docker interview questions and answers. Let's begin. What is Docker and why is it used? Docker is a platform that allows you to package applications and their dependencies into lightweight, portable containers. These containers run consistently across different environments such as local machines, testing servers, staging, and production. Developers use Docker because it eliminates the classic "it works on my machine" problem. With Docker, the application always runs inside the same isolated environment, so behavior is predictable. Docker is heavily used in microservices because each service can run inside its own container independent of others. It is also widely used in modern DevOps for CI/CD pipelines, distributed applications, and cloud platforms like AWS, GCP, and Azure. The main benefits of Docker are portability, fast deployment, better resource utilization, and simplified scaling. Next, what is the difference between a Docker image and a Docker container? A Docker image is a read-only blueprint that defines what the container will contain. It includes the application, libraries, dependencies, and runtime instructions. Think of an image as a template. A Docker container, on the other hand, is a running instance of that image. It is the actual execution environment where your application runs. While images are static and stored in registries, containers are dynamic and can be started, stopped, paused, or deleted. In interviews, companies expect you to explain that images are used to create containers and containers are isolated environments that run the application. This distinction is critical for understanding Docker workflow, deployment, and scaling in production environments. Next, what is Dockerfile and why is it important? A Dockerfile is a script that contains step-by-step instructions for building a Docker image. It defines the base image, dependencies, configuration, environment variables, copy instructions, and startup command for the application. The Dockerfile is essential because it automates image creation and ensures consistency. Instead of manually installing packages every time, you define the setup once and Docker builds the environment automatically. Interviewers expect you to say that Dockerfile helps create reproducible, version-controlled builds and is a core part of CI/CD pipelines. Next, what is Docker Hub? Docker Hub is a cloud-based registry where you can store, share, and distribute Docker images. It works like GitHub but for Docker images. Docker Hub contains official images for Linux distributions, databases, programming languages, and frameworks. Developers use Docker Hub to pull pre-built images such as MySQL, Redis, Nginx, or OpenJDK. Organizations can also create private repositories to store proprietary images. In interviews, mention that Docker Hub simplifies image distribution across teams and environments, making deployment faster and more reliable. Next, what is containerization and how is it different from virtualization? Containerization uses lightweight containers that share the host operating system's kernel. Virtualization uses full virtual machines with their own OS, which makes them heavier. Containers are faster to start, smaller in size, and more efficient in resource usage compared to virtual machines. They isolate applications while still using the host's OS instead of requiring a separate OS per instance. Interviewers expect you to highlight that containers provide process-level isolation, whereas virtual machines provide hardware-level isolation. Docker became popular because it delivers most benefits of virtual machines with far less overhead. Next, what is Docker Compose and when do you use it? Docker Compose is a tool for running multiple containers together using a single configuration file, typically named dockercompose.yml. It is used to define multi-container environments such as microservices or applications that depend on databases, message brokers, or caching layers. With Docker Compose, you can start the entire environment with one command. Instead of starting containers individually, it simplifies local development and testing. In interviews, the key point is that Docker Compose helps manage multi-container applications, making orchestration easy for development and small-scale environments. Next, what is a Docker volume and why is it used? Docker volumes provide persistent data storage for containers. Since containers are temporary and can be deleted or recreated, volumes ensure that important data such as logs, database storage, or uploaded files are not lost. Volumes are stored outside the container file system, which makes them durable across restarts and updates. They also improve performance and allow easy data sharing between containers. Interviewers expect you to mention that volumes solve the problem of data loss, which is a critical requirement for stateful applications. Next, what is a Docker network and why do we need it? A Docker network allows containers to communicate with each other securely. Docker provides bridge networks, host networks, overlay networks, and none networks for different scenarios. Networking is essential in microservices where each service runs in its own container and must communicate reliably. Docker automatically assigns IPs and DNS names for each container, simplifying service discovery. In interviews, emphasize that Docker networking isolates containers and makes inter-container communication predictable and secure. Next, what is container orchestration? Container orchestration is the automated management of containerized applications. It includes scaling containers, distributing workloads, handling failures, rolling updates, and service discovery. Tools like Kubernetes, Docker Swarm, and Amazon ECS provide orchestration. They ensure applications run reliably even under heavy load or when nodes fail. Interviewers expect you to mention that orchestration is essential for production environments running many containers. Next, what are the advantages of Docker? Docker provides consistency, portability, fast deployment, scalability, and efficient resource usage. It simplifies DevOps pipelines and reduces environment conflicts. Developers prefer Docker because it packages everything: application, dependencies, configs into one container that runs identically everywhere. In interviews, highlight that Docker improves productivity, reduces errors, and makes cloud deployments predictable. Next, what is the difference between CMD and entry point? CMD provides a default command but can be overridden. Entry point defines the main command that always executes. Interviewers want you to know the behavior difference. CMD is optional, entry point is fixed. Together, they allow flexible execution patterns. Next, how do you ensure security in Docker? Security best practices include using trusted images, scanning images for vulnerabilities, running containers with least privilege, isolating networks, disabling root access, and keeping Docker updated. Interviewers expect you to emphasize minimizing attack surface and avoiding unnecessary container permissions. Next, what is a multi-stage build in Docker? Multi-stage builds allow you to use multiple from instructions to optimize images. You can build your application in one stage and copy only the final artifacts to the final stage. This reduces image size and improves security. Interviewers expect this concept for modern Docker usage. Next question, what is Docker Swarm? Docker Swarm is Docker's native orchestration tool. It manages clusters of nodes, distributes containers, balances load, and handles scaling. Although Kubernetes is more popular, Swarm is simpler and easier for small teams. Interviewers expect you to know both. Next question. How does Docker help in CI/CD pipelines? Docker ensures consistent builds and environments during automated testing and deployment. CI/CD tools like Jenkins, GitHub Actions, and GitLab. CI run builds inside containers, ensuring repeatability. Docker images are also used for artifact packaging and deployment, making delivery faster and predictable. Interviewers expect you to highlight how Docker improves automation, reduces failures, and speeds up release cycles. That's it. Docker has become an essential skill for modern Java, microservices, cloud, and DevOps engineers. Understanding containerization, orchestration, Docker files, networking, and volumes is now mandatory for backend development roles. With these top 15 interview questions, you now have strong, complete, and accurate answers that will help you crack real interviews confidently.